in the recognition that for all our differences, we should be proud of the fact that this is the only country that stands for ideals, including government of, by, and for the people. And I think that's the common ground where we meet and remember that we're all in this together. And I guess that's the most important thing for me every day of the week.
Keep listening to WCPT 820. Because facts matter.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
The following program, Collaboraction Radio, is sponsored by Collaboraction and, to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of NewsWeb Radio Company or its management.
Collaboration.
Radio.
Here we go.
Radio killed the video star, but we are still trucking on episode 34, I believe.
Oh, wow. Sweetness.
And we have a sweet show with the two Marias. Welcome to Collaboration Radio. We're here at the intersection of art, activism, and social change. That was the queen of house music, DJ Lady D, with our intro. She was our guest last week. She's amazing.
And just voted best DJ, I believe, in Chicago by the readers of the Reader.
The readers.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on WCPT 820 AM. We're here live in the studio at 5400 North Milwaukee with the big antenna stretching up, and sending waves out to the world. Chicago's Progressive Talk Radio. We're also streaming right now live on Facebook. What's up? I did a lot of finger work last week. I thought it was kind of fun for Dee's song.
What's this?
And I think you two are on a two-shot there. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
And you can also get this after the fact on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and everywhere. Thank you, Alex. You get your excellent digital stuff. I am Anthony Mosley, and I'm here with my favorite person in the world.
Hi, everyone. This is Sandra Maria Delgado.
Sandra's been doing some co-hosting, and it's always good to spend time with Sandra. And we have a very special guest. We're going to introduce her in a moment. Sandra, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying the sunshine today. Thank goodness for the sun. It always helps.
Sun is shining. Yeah, it does. I guess that's why one of the good things of being deprived of the sun for so many months. You know, I have been just really taking my vitamin D, and I just want to remind everybody that if you live north of St. Louis, you are in the vitamin D deficiency belt. You cannot get enough vitamin D, even if you eat sushi every day. It's true. So you need to take some vitamin D. And I plummet my vitamin if I don't. So I've been on the regimen of vitamin D, and I'm feeling much better. I have more energy than I was 6 weeks ago. The other thing that's going on with me that I'll just share with our listeners quickly because it's really interesting is that I had a little knee injury, and I was stretching and heating and cooling and stretching and heating and cooling, and it didn't go away. So I went to the doctor. They put me on some steroids, and I'm on day 4 of those today. My knee's feeling better, and I can smell again.
Anthony stopped smelling things about 6 years ago, I think. He lost his sense of smell. Oh, my goodness. Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I can smell again, and it's really kind of weird. I had gotten used to not smelling things, and now I'm like, is that me? Oh, thank God that's not me. But I have a very tolerant, amazing partner who loves me for my smells. So that's what's going on here. Collaboration Radio is sponsored by the Joseph and Bessie Feinberg Foundation and donors and members like you. You can email info@collaboration.org or just go to collaboration.org to learn more. And you can buy an ad package or become a sponsor, or you can pitch us a PSA or promote your favorite thing, as long as it's connected to art, activism, and social change. Today's episode of Collaboration Radio is sponsored by AV Chicago, Chicago's leading provider of AV production and event management services. When you need to light it up, call AV Chicago. They got the tech geeks to get it done. And Ethos Collective. Ethos Event Collective is a purpose. Sandra, listen to this description and tell me if you think we are a good match for this company.
All right.
Is a purpose-driven destination and event management company that seeks to become a trusted, strategic ally to your business as we create authentic experiences that align with your goals, delight your audience, and generate impactful outcomes.
Yes.
We must share the same copywriter. EthosEventCollective.com. Hit them up if you need to
Call them.
If you need to bring a bunch of people into the country, into Chicago, and show them the time of their life. Delight your audience. We are a 27-year-old nonprofit, Collaboration is, and our mission is to build knowledge, empathy, dialogue, and action. You know, we call that KEDA. KEDA. Knowledge, empathy, dialogue, and action. That's our methodology through live theater, film, radio, podcasts that leverage the power of storytelling and community to cultivate positive social change. And today's guest is doing just that. And she'll be joining us in just a moment. Collaboration news and updates. Oh, what can we say? We have auditions for The Light right now, our youth program of artists and activists. I was down at the Gary Comer Youth Center in South Shore. What a facility. Oh, my goodness. What a gorgeous facility. If you are under the age of 20 or over the age of 19, either one, and you live within a mile of the Gary Comer Center, get over there because they have an unbelievable facility with so much going on. I think they were doing free haircuts today.
What is it? Is it a park district?
It's a super, I don't know. It has an NBA basketball court with a stage. It's the best community center I've ever seen.
Yeah, it is.
So, The Light. The last rounds of it. We were at Chicago High School for the Performing Arts on Tuesday. Saw some amazing young people over there. And we have a couple more auditions. So any young people 14 to 19 that are artists and activists that have something to say about how they want to make the world a better place or a more equitable place, go check out collaboration.org/The Light and audition.
Audition, they get paid.
It pays. They get paid $18 an hour.
Right. Cultivate artist activists in Chicago.
I worked in theater for 20 years before I was getting $18 an hour.
Sad and true.
Pre-pandemic. What else? Collaboration Radio. We had a bunch of great guests the last month. Go check that out and listen to those podcasts and like them, share, and subscribe, and take the little notes because we had amazing people last month. Tanika Lewis-Johnson, DJ Lady D, David Cherry, Oran. Next week, we have Miranda Gonzalez of Urban Theater Company coming in.
Ooh, amazing.
And then after that, we have Maida McNeil.
Oh, my gosh.
Of Honeypot Performance.
Wow, yes.
Project.
Two powerhouse Chicagoans.
But today, we have Maria Pike.
Yeah.
We have Maria Pike. And Maria Pike is... Well, we did some research about Maria Pike. She's a friend and a Collaboration board member. But man, her resume is, how did you do all of those things in one life? Are you a vampire? Have you been around? You worked in hotels. Like, she did hotels.
Real estate.
She had an antique store. Flipping houses.
Yeah. Actually, some people tell me, who's your clone?
Clones.
Yeah, and you are everywhere. You're all over Chicago.
She is one of our mothers who has dedicated herself to make Chicago a better place. And Collaboration did a show called Crime Scene, a Chicago anthology, back in 2012, and it was really about us trying to get to the bottom of the root cause of violence in Chicago. And I was just very ignorant at the time, and I wanted to know better, and I wanted to do better. I wanted to know more and do better. And we started and we made a show about the root cause of violence, and come to learn a lot. And some of the things that I learned was that hurt people. And sometimes hurt people heal people. Very rarely in a magical kind of spirit, you'll find somebody who, when they are hurt as deeply as one can be hurt, instead of lashing out at the world, they love out at the world. And that is what Maria Pike does. She is a major Chicago peacemaker, coalition builder. She's a national gun safety advocate. And she ties together so many different communities and people in the city. So we're just honored to have Maria here with us.
It's amazing to be here with you.
Oh, I am the one who is honored to be here. Yes.
So we kind of see you as a superhero. So tell everybody the Maria Pike origin story. How did you get here?
Well,
and get nice and close to that mic so we can really hear you.
Well, my story began with the death of my son, Ricky. He was killed on August 3rd, 2012 in Logan Square. He had just moved from my home 2 months earlier. And it really, my bubble burst, because I was one of those moms who, minded her own business, who was pretty private, and I am naturally very shy, which is funny because I have to face so many situations every single day, and I have to speak up because my voice now is the voice of my son. And my son loved Chicago. He had zillions of friends from all different cultures, races, geographical areas, and he was deeply loved. And I actually found about that at the funeral, because the church was it was full and there were people outside, and I was like, we were a family of 4, and I didn't have a lot of friends, and I don't have families in here in Chicago, so that was something that that was so emotional for me, and I decided that I was going to, first of all, I had to find out why someone killed someone they didn't even know. And I ended up walking the streets, plastering. A friend of mine gave me 4,000 flyers. I didn't put them all, but every time in Logan Square, every time somebody pulled my flyer, I would paste them again. I would put another one, and I would knock on doors. And some residents would, they wouldn't want to talk to me at the front door. They wanted to talk to me in the garage about what was going on in the community. Oh. And it was just the kind of compassion they felt for me. Mm-hmm. And I will be forever grateful. The site where it happened, actually, they allowed me for 10 years to every year on August the 3rd, I go there before about the time where he was killed. He was killed at 4:15. So I go there and I leave flowers for people to pick up, roses for people to pick up in his honor. And they allowed me to do that for 10 years. That was amazing. And I think I found that the community, if you dig deep and if you walk the streets and if you talk to people one-on-one, they're willing to listen to you and they're willing to share their story, because each one of us has a different story. Every single murder in the city or anywhere is actually unique. There is no single homicide that is similar to another. So it's a very difficult situation to work on. And I had to walk through the judicial system to the courts. I had to wait 7 years, but I was one of the blessed ones who actually had the person in custody, Unfortunately, and that's where I learned to, I met someone his name is Xavier at the University of Chicago, because I was a big-time investigator. I wanted to know from everywhere, and not necessarily the newspapers. So I met this young man at the University of Chicago. They were having a summit. His name was Xavier, and Xavier was a returning citizen. And Xavier was asking for forgiveness and talking about how much it pained him to remember the day, it's the 27th, the day, and how he, he was looking for forgiveness. Right? Mm-hmm. But he was doing amazing work at that point in time, and he was working with trying to eliminate the life sentences for youth, the incarcerated and incarcerated children advocacy network. And through the years, he has been able to help eliminate that in many states. Mm-hmm. So he's work every single day of his life, not atoning for what he did. And he called me on that in December. When I met him, he was very embarrassed to meet me and my friend because we were survivors of gun violence, and he was, on the other side of the fence. But he called me on that December, and he said he was grieving. He truly was grieving. He was crying. And I was also crying because December is horrible for survivors. And the two of us were, talking about, forgiveness. And I thought about it for a couple of days, and I realized that I was going to forgive what this other young man did to my son, but he had to be accountable for it. And a huge weight came out of my shoulders because I had spent almost 2 years without sleeping, with anger, hate, wanting to get even, hiding on my car at the wee hours of the morning, trying to see which gang, because it was a gang member who killed him, which gangs I could see before they arrested him. I didn't know who it was. I wanted to see what they were doing in the middle of the night. And then, unfortunately, after 7 years, he was, by law, he had to be 80 years in prison. Basically, he was going to die in prison. And I do not believe in such long terms. I think that he could be redeemed and he could learn, because after all, Xavier became such an amazing human being. He was raised at age 13. He was being raised in prison. But he had a lot of supporters who loved him, who wanted to help him, Father Kelly was one of them. And so why not? He could redeem himself. I don't need anything from him, but he owes it to his family to find his God, to educate himself, so that when he came out of prison, he could be a role model for his children. He was very young, but he had already like 3 children, I believe. Unfortunately, this year I went through a very... They had called me the previous year to tell me that there was a technicality that they were going to... Because of that technicality, they were going to have to start again.
Start his sentence again?
His trial.
The trial.
Oh, the trial.
Yeah, the trial. And the only witness who was also shot, he really was reluctant to come. He had moved to different states. I mean, he has PTSD big time. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want to come. I convinced him to come. And when he was doing his deposition, they were saying that they had to postpone it because they had to investigate issues that had nothing to do with the murder itself. But at that time, he told me, this young man told me, I am not going to come back. I can't come back. So we decided, the Attorney General decided to give him an offer. He couldn't refuse, but that was beyond they didn't consult me for that. That was a decision that they made based on their experience, and they decided to give him 20 years at 50%, which means that the day after we were in court, he was released. Wow. Mm-hmm. Now, that's where we talk about, forgiveness and accountability. I don't wish him anything. I actually want him to do well. But I know in my heart, because I have been working in these spaces, in prison as well, that he's not ready. The day that he took the plea deal, he announced in public that he took the plea deal because his family needed him, but he was still innocent. Oh. So that right away tells me he's not taking responsibility for what he did. He's not accountable. And I pray that he's not going to be hurting the community in the future. That was a really bad situation. But, and then something really weird happened that same month. 3 days later, I was called. I was asked to go, to the Bulls Stadium, and I had told them the Joaquim Noah Foundation, and I had told them I wanted my son was a huge fan, and he wanted his ashes, over there, and so Joaquim helped me accomplish some of that. And so I was walking, came home, parked. All of a sudden, I get carjacked. So I am thinking about this. I hope they don't take my bag, because there are some of his ashes are there. I hope they leave his picture alone in my car, the car that they were carjacking. And they held me, they stranglehold me, and I was on the floor, and I could only see legs. And I could tell right away that they were very young Hispanic kids. And so I said, and then my son's image kept coming. So I said to the guy, to the kid who was holding me, I said to him, son, why are you doing this to me? I already lost my own son. Lo and behold, he didn't answer. He didn't say anything. But when they were finishing, getting into the car, doing the stuff, there were 4 of them. I was trying to stand up. He released me, but I couldn't stand up. So he grabbed me from one arm, trying to lift me. And then he called the other kid, one of the other kids, to help me stand up, right? And what did I learn from that? I learned that you can talk with your heart to people that are actually, those knuckleheads were still in my car. But then he found enough compassion or even empathy to realize it could be my mom, because of where they are at in this thing.
That was the night after the Bulls game?
The night of the Bulls game. I was coming back. It was around 10:25 in the evening. And I was just floating on air,
Yeah.
because mission accomplished, right? And somebody came from behind and threw me to the ground. And this happened. But the lesson that I learned, I was very upset, but what I learned was that I should never give up on the kids. Never. If you thought I was going to give up now, you're totally wrong, because these knuckleheads show, while they were still in my car, they show compassion. And then I heard that on the north side, there had been like 8, crimes committed after, like 90 minutes after. And they saw the plate. They read one of those blue lights. They saw the plate of my car on Belmont and Lakeshore Drive. And that's around the area where these 8 crimes happened. So, for sure. And then they said that they had guns. So, basically, I feel that once again, my son came to the rescue and probably told me, tell them about me. And I did. And that's why they spare me, But on the other hand, I know that those kids are can be redeemed. They, we need to talk to them. How are we going to grow empathy in a world where our kids do not feel the love of their families or the community itself? Yeah. And actually become good citizens eventually. It's not there anywhere. Civics is so important right now. We have to go back to civics and understand why we as children have rights and adults have rights, and why we behave in certain ways, like the bus, right? Why are you living, you have a bunch of children sitting on the elderly bus, and they will not move, right?
Right.
Well, there's a reason for that, right? The physical reason why elderly need those spaces, but nobody's talking about civics and your role in community. So, yeah, that's the story. And then I actually, I was invited to go to Congress early in 2013 after the Sandy Hook shooting. By the organizations that, in Sandy Hook, the Newtown Action Alliance. They invited us, they paid for our stays, and they walked us through Congress, and we learned to lobby with them. And we were not the two-horned people that they thought Chicago parents were.
Oh, wow.
I think that was sort of, being the first time, I think they were sort of shocked to know that, hey, this mom can be my mom. They are not corrupt people. They are not, gangbangers. They are not, they're just plain human beings who lost their children, and they want gun violence to be, prevented by, closing the loopholes that exist currently in our system. So that was one. And then eventually I went to Englewood, to many organizations, RAGE, Teamwork Englewood, Growing Greater Englewood, Growing Home. There are so many small mom and pops organizations. Like I would consider Tina Hammond her own organization.
She's got a great yard, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah. She is a great gardener. And she has all the flowers that we have been donating to mom survivors every June at Wear Orange. We give them perennials. And she has them all. So she plants them every year so I can visit. So that's, that the connection that starts, right? And one of the things about me is that when you see me, you see an Asian woman, right? And people say, what the hell is this woman doing here? They question your presence. And what it is that even in Hispanic spaces. And so I have to say, well, my parents, on my dad's side were, Chinese. My mom's side were actually mulatto and Hispanic. So I actually have all kinds of blood in me, but the way I look is the way they see me, and that's the reaction I get, right? Until, we establish that productive conversation about why I'm there and why I'm interested in your story. And because I think storytelling is super important. And also, I am like an elephant mom. I lost my child, but I am looking for other little elephants to nurture. And that's the way I feel about what I do. And we cannot be in silos forever. I only cover this part of gun violence, or I only cover this part of the root causes of gun violence and poverty and whatever, right? No, we all must work together. I remember Miss Fox, Kim Fox. She saw me in the different spaces, and she said to me, "Oh, you're everywhere." And I said, "Well, I think you're thinking that I'm crazy, but there is a method for my madness. I do believe that we are all connected." And she understood that, I think that the more we are connected and unify, the more our voices, that we actually talk about our truths and our stories, the more we're going to have that kind of energy to move our issues forward. And our issues have to do with poverty, disenfranchisement, gun violence. And also, we need to not only do that here at city level, we have to do it at state level, we have to do it at federal level. Luckily, Governor Pritzker has been fantastic. He has so far five laws that he has signed protecting, gun violence prevention. His latest one was PICA, Protecting Illinois Communities Act, which has been amazing. Ours became the 9th state that actually passed a law banning assault weapons, banned high-capacity magazines, and switches. And why am I saying switches is because it directly affects the community of Chicago. Switches are very cheap, and you can get them anywhere. Online, you can get them for $20. You just put it on your gun, and it becomes a semi-automatic or weapon. So that's very dangerous for us. So we're very happy that he went for that, because I think the caucuses, the Black caucus, the Women's caucus, they wanted to include also switches, because high capacity magazines, AR-15s, they tend to be the favorite weapon of choice. That's the weapon of choice for mass murderers, and those murders tend to happen mostly in areas outside the cities like Chicago. It happens in the suburbs, in schools and all of that. So, yeah.
Wow. We're here with Maria Pike. And if you want to call in with a comment or a question for us, you can call 773-763-WCPT. That's 773-763-WCPT. 9278. You know, you said something, you and I had a conversation earlier in the week, and I talked to you, and I actually talked to Sandra about this too, about the left and the right side of your brain being the linear and the intuitive side of your brain.
Right.
And intuitive is also creative, social, emotional intelligence, imagination. And I would say that your son, it was your intuition that allowed you to hear your son send you that message to tell those boys about him.
Yeah.
That is intuition.
Excuse me. And you know what? He always sends me messages, and people believe me. It is true. Mm-hmm. and there are millions of people who have lost their loved ones and have had experiences.
Yes.
You know,
yeah.
That tell us that their energy doesn't go away. The body is no longer with us, but the energy is with us. So, and I think it is important to recognize, for me, that who I do this for and what he wants me to do. You know.
For me, a big part of moving beyond grief is recognizing and taking the time to listen and to hear our loved ones from the other side. Mm-hmm. My father, after he passed away in 2001 from complications from fighting cancer, I was a wreck for a while, and I would always want to call my dad and pick up the phone and tell him something. You know, if I had a question or something excited, call my dad. And I'd either tell him or I'd ask him, hey, I got this thing in the mail from the insurance company. And but after he died, I would pick up the phone to call him, and then I would remember that he was dead. And I would get really sad for about half hour. I would ruin my afternoon, you know. And one day I was shooting a commercial in Los Angeles. That was kind of a big deal, and it's checked into the hotel room. My dad had been gone for maybe 6 months, and I went to go call my dad, and I started to get sad, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to make the phone call. I said, hey, Dad. He said, hey, bud. I said, I'm here at the hotel in L.A. It's so cool. He's like, that's great. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, I booked a commercial. You're going to rock it. You know, I had the conversation with him. And it really helped me move past my grief, and so I just want to throw that into the universe because I think it's important.
Yeah, and you know, why is it that I think that what you're doing is so pivotal and so important, right? And when we were talking about the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain, in places like, you know, the Southwest side and Englewood and Far South Side and also the West Side, some places in the West Side, our school system is underfunded. I don't know what is going on right now, but at the time, before the pandemic, the schools were underfunded, and the first thing that went, because of the way they allocate the monies, right, is per head count. Mm-hmm. So you have a lot of schools that were shut down because you had a humongous, 1,000 room school, and there were only 178 or 180 students. Right. So those were the ones that were, 4 of them closed in the last few years in Englewood to create a STEM high school. But one of the things that I found out was that the first thing that goes is arts, sports, sometimes chemistry, because they cannot fund it, and the teachers there, the principal, I met this principal who was young and heroic. She was trying her best to get whatever she could, even, doing, sort of fundraisers to get the kids what they needed, uniforms, things like that. So what happens to these kids? They're actually being denied the development of that side of the brain, which is so important for creativity, empathy.
Yes.
And if we are talking about, how kids are aggressive or in certain areas, there's so much violence, this and that. Well, why is it that there is so much disenfranchisement in education in certain parts of the city, whereas in the north side, when COVID took place, I have a lot of friends who are teachers and a lot of friends who are moms, and in the north side and in the suburbs and everywhere, right? So the north side moms said, "Oh, no big deal. We have computers, we have access, and I can do it from home." Forgetting that almost 80,000 children in the system didn't have computers at home, didn't have internet access at home. And the parents many times had 2 jobs. They were essential workers, some of them. And in places like Little Village, you have parents who love their kids, but they have to work and they have to leave the kids alone. And they don't have, and some of them don't have the education to be able to help their kids with math or whatever courses they need to be helped in. So we totally ignored that. And we also ignored that, 80,000 kids, after months of wrangling, they got their computers. But it shouldn't be.
Our most vulnerable youth were left behind when they needed us the most.
Exactly.
And yes, I mean, and I'm excited. Mayor Johnson is really seems to be taking some big steps at changing the education system, and also taking down TIFs, the whole TIF thing. But imagine school without sports or art. That is called a place of no fun. And if you are a kid and you have to go to a place of no fun 5 days a week to do math and no offense, I know everybody's phone can do it now, but it's when the aliens look at us, when the Martians take a look at how we do things, they say, well, of course it turns out this way. This is how...
It's the consequence.
It's the design.
Right. It was done by design. The kids here see that the kids over here are actually have everything and they have nothing. So that contributed to their mental well-being as well. And we have actually 2.5 years of lack of socialization that affected them. Yeah. And that's why we had in 2021 so much crime, right? And now even carjacking, 300% increase, over 300% increase in carjackings. The carjackings is a phenomena that started with isolation, COVID-19, and the internet.
Yeah.
So right now, you don't feel safe anywhere. But on the other hand, it is that we cannot stop our efforts to help the community, not only help the families who have been affected by gun violence and homicide overall, and the kids who suffer the consequences of the loss of their siblings, of their parents, of whoever. Because if you're telling me, hey, the kids don't need help, it's the parents, that's totally wrong. We have to approach the healthcare treatment for the parent as much as the kids, as the young kids.
And the kids are the parents of tomorrow.
Exactly.
And you can never start too early.
Correct.
The first 18 months of your life pretty much lay the foundation and the ceiling for your capacity to love and give love. And
exactly.
be loved.
Yeah. And it is like they say that, not everybody is born with empathy. And how you need to grow it. How do you grow it? By providing care in the first years of their lives, of the kids' lives. And that is not happening. And you're saying, oh, the parents don't care. I'm not I will never criticize a parent for what is happening to their kids, because I do not know the story behind that parent. I do not know whether it's domestic violence. I do not know if this parent has 2-3 jobs, which is not uncommon, and in places that little village, right, and back of the yards, and sometimes not so much in Pilsen, but yeah, those are things that we need to work on. Our kids deserve to develop that part of the brain to become whole human beings, productive members of the community. It's not only the math part of it and the what do you call it, the logical part of it. It's also that part that grows their empathy, grows their creativity, grows the world that they live in through the arts.
Maria, one of the things that really resonated with me when you were telling us your superhero story was the power of the one-to-one interaction. And I think when people think, oh, I want to help, I want to plug in, they think that it has to be this big grand gesture, but we really underestimate the power of one-on-one. And your story is such a inspirational story of the difference that one person can make. So I'm just wondering, to everyone listening out there, what comes to mind for you as a way for people to plug in, whether it's supporting Chicago's youth or advocating for gun safety? What are things that come to mind that someone can do?
Well, a daily act of kindness goes a long way. You don't have to be a millionaire. Many activists in Englewood don't have a penny, but they do the work. They volunteer, they do it for the community, etc. So you don't have to have money. All you need to do is commit yourself to acts of kindness in your community, and for others. It's very important to serve, and also join organizations that are working on gun violence prevention, domestic violence, and organizations that are serving the public, like New Life Centers of Little Village. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job. They have, I believe they have so far like 3,000 apartments that they have served.
Wow.
Yeah, and I understand that it's 13,000 people. It's the power of serving without anything else, You just serve because it's the right thing to do. Don't serve because you're going to get something back, because you're going to be elevated, because the news are going to be here, etc., etc. That doesn't work. And that will help you also grow your own empathy, And conversations are so, so, so important. A one-on-one has always worked because, you don't get the trust when you look different than people are. All you can do is say, I'm here because I have my best intentions in offering my presence and my help. And I'm not going to be, because there is a lot of resentment in communities, right? That they see these newcomers who say they're going to, invent the wheel.
Right.
When we know that the wheel doesn't need to be invented, but we know that we need an ally who can serve, not an ally who will use me as a stepping block. And that is the mistrust that exists in communities, especially with people who are actually doing the work within community.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I'm very I'm getting old, but I'm hoping that I can pass the baton to others who can do the same, especially the young people, because those are the ones who grew up with, drills, the gun drills in the schools. And that is so unfair, because there's nobody who's going to convince me that a gun drill in schools doesn't worry a child and create, a space where there are fear for their safety. We didn't have that growing up. Now we do. And that is not fair. And there are organizations like March for Our Lives who are working on that. We have a congressman right now. His name is Maxwell Frost, who came from the March for Our Lives movement. Those are the young people that we need to put forth so that they can take the reins. They know best, what we need to do, and they need to vote, and they vote. They have the last election. March for Our Lives was actually promoting the voting across the nation for that same reason. So I think the next generation should be coming soon, other than later. Yeah.
So before Ricky was taken, did you ever have any clue that your life was going to take this turn and that you were going to, have this amazing, sustained effort to contribute the way you are?
Not at all. I mean, I was a homebody basically, and I had, my job. I had an antique store, and I was a realtor, and I lived my life, and I was, and I am naturally very shy. I just face my fear. And the bubble burst.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I see that there are streets where there's a lot of gun violence that I didn't see. And I saw that there was a lot of hurt in the community. I saw kids who actually were where they were because there was no support behind them. Mm. And that's very heartbreaking. Even with Laquan McDonald, yes, we know what happened to him. Do we really know his story, the story behind him? It's heartbreaking. And people try, UConn, I think, was trying to support him and all that. But, for one thing, it really highlighted the issues that we have with police abuse, right? And that truly was unfair that guy was given such little time in prison because he killed an innocent young man.
We had Jamie Calvert on the show of the Invisible Institute, and he's the one that got the dash cam video released so the world could see what happened to Laquan McDonald. And he also, with Allison Flowers, produced a wonderful podcast called Somebody, about Shapiro Wells, who also was a mother who lost her son. Her bubble was burst, and she recorded her conversation with police officers, and her son was handcuffed to the gurney and died in the ambulance. And he was shot, and he drove himself to the police station, and it took 25 minutes for an ambulance to come, and he was handcuffed, and he was an innocent victim of a gunshot, and I see parallels in your story and Shapiro's story, and of course in Mamie Till's story. And Mamie Till said, before this, I thought that wasn't my business, but now I realize everything is my business.
Yes,
folks, we are all little cells inside of the same body. Do you know how you have cells in your body? Well, we are all a cell, and we are all a cell in one body. And the body part that we're in is called Chicago, right? It's a part of the body. It's like the wrist. But the earth is the body. And the earth, guess what, is a cell inside of a larger body called the Milky Way. And guess what? The Milky Way is a cell inside of a larger body. We are not only connected, we are each other. And as Gwendolyn Brooks said, we are each other's business. Maria Pike, thank you so much for sharing your story, your courage, your love with our show, Collaboration, Chicago, the country and the whole body. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
Well, we are advocating right now for the cold case bill in Springfield, and we're going to be going there on April 16th, and hopefully you will join us. That's one. And also we're trying to promote Karina's bill. I'm sure a lot of you know the story behind Karina. And let's keep moving. And, you need to participate. You need to be part of the force.
Where do people go if they do want to join you in Springfield on the 16th?
You can go on Facebook and look for Moms to Demand Action, and you will be able to see our announcement. Everybody's welcome to come. Last year we had about 600 members, and there was a year where we had 900 members. And the governor has given us his ear. Mm-hmm. So we are actually, very happy with what has been happening in this state, and we hope that other states do the kind of work that he has been doing all along.
Your son must be so proud of you.
I'm proud of him.
What a great show. Thank you for joining us.
Maria.
Hey, everybody, enjoy the day. It's Saturday, March 2nd, 2024. We are in the present moment right now, and right now. The past and the future don't actually exist. So get off your couch. Just keep on listening to WCPT, Collaboration Radio.
Get out in the sunshine while we still have it.
March for something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The preceding program, Collaboration Radio, is sponsored by Collaboration, and to the extent applicable, their guests. The views and opinions expressed therein do not necessarily reflect those of New